Welcome back to the Driveway Beers podcast with Mike and Alex. As always, we appreciate you listening. Please rate us on all the podcast platforms. Like, subscribe, comment, share wherever else you're listening, and enjoy the show. All right, welcome back to another episode. We appreciate you listening. As always, hey, Mike, I don't know if I told you this. We got another 1-star review last week.
Really?
So a recent one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Who liked it that much this time?
I believe it was from Tua's Burner account.
Oh.
I'm sure that's his real name. They pretty much said we're awful, which is great.
Thanks for the listen.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, because, they all count as listens, right?
Yeah.
Whether they hate listen, love listen, or just like listen. They're all listens.
Right. Or just plain indifference listen.
That's right. And if you are listening right now, whether you hate us or love us, please go to tacmd.com, because someone who you're definitely not going to hate is Adam Chubbuck, because Adam is going to put you in the perfect position for your real estate needs. And I know that sounds like a complete douchebag ad read, and I'm sorry for that. No, listen, it is going to be a very difficult real estate market. We got the new administration. We don't know if rates are going to go up or going to go down. But you want to know who's going to know this stuff, or at least going to have a better idea than any one of us. It's going to be Adam. So what you do is you go to TACMD. That's TACMD.com. Adam is with Douglas Realty in Pasadena, Maryland. He serves Virginia, D.C., Maryland. I'm not sure if he's in Delaware. He can let us know. But he's someone who's going to give you the best advice that you can get, and it's going to be tailored to your specific situation. He's not going to give you some canned response. He's not going to say, "Oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that," if he can't really do those things. And he's not going to try and put you in a situation where it's not going to be beneficial to you, even if it's beneficial for him. So go with someone who's going to treat your money like it's his. And that's Adam. Adam Chubbuck, TACMD.com. That's TACMD.com. And at least have a conversation with him. I'm actually scheduled to have a conversation with him next week.
Oh.
Just to see if there's maybe like a renovation project I can kind of get in on.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think I mentioned this for a while. We had some extra cash because we finally had a couple loans paid off. So we've been saving up some money. Well, now it's just sitting in my savings account. It's not doing shit.
Right. Making what, 0.25%?
About that, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's gaining me zero. So I'm going to call Adam and just be like, hey, look, can I be like a silent partner in like a renovation project or something and get like a defined amount back or however it works. I don't really even know how it works. But you know what? If I ask him, he's going to let me know whether it's the right situation for me. And that's why anybody should go talk to Adam, TACMD.com. Well, there's been a lot of stuff happening.
Planes falling out of the sky.
That's an odd situation by itself.
And I'm not making light of it, but it's just like one of the things where you watch all like the end of days movies and the planes are falling out of the sky. So,
I mean, we've had what? One collision and one just drop.
Yes.
In the last week.
Yeah.
You got Elon, who's running roughshod over the federal government. Some love it, some hate it. Some scaring of federal employees, which some people love, some people hate. Which I think it's funny. So for those that don't know, and I'm sure if you've been on social media, which I've been trying to stay off of Twitter and X or whatever you want to call it, it's been Elon posts like every single hour. And of course he gets boosted to everyone's feed, right? Like I used to like when he tweeted, but now I'm looking at it. It's like, okay, enough, dude. Be a grown up.
Well, if you see the tweet, he should be tweeting about Dogecoin, not Doge, but the Dogecoin. Because I bought like 462 Dogecoins back in the day for like a fraction of a cent a piece. I think I spent $1 on them. And if you're going to tweet, let's bring Doge to the moon.
That's right.
Like, let's not mess around with this other Doge.
Well, if you're gonna fire a bunch of people, at least tell them to invest in some Doge and then make it go to the moon.
Yeah.
So that they can make some money off of whatever you're doing to them.
Yeah.
So he sends out this email, and it definitely came from him. Well, I shouldn't say from him. So, from what I understand, he goes into OPM, which is the HR department for the federal government, creates his own server, gets all the email addresses for all the federal workforce after the director of OPM said he wouldn't do that.
Right.
Well, I think he got fired. 3 more people down got fired. Finally, they found a patsy who would do it for him, would release all the email lists. So they had direct access to every single federal employee email. Because generally, you'll only get it from your department.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, if you, or even if you work for, let's say you work for FEMA, you can get it from a FEMA HR, or if you work for, which also is underneath DHS, you might get one from like DHS HR.
Yeah.
The person would never get something from OPM directly.
Yeah.
Right? Or GSA, or it wouldn't come from another outside organization. It would at least, at the worst part, it would go to the DHS email address and then filter down to the employees.
Right.
Well, the email he sent was directly from OPM to all the employees. Mm-hmm. They just went direct to everybody. And it said, hey, if you decide to resign on September 30th today, we'll give you all of your pay, or you'll keep getting all of your paychecks until September 30th. I guess it would be in early October since they pay us two weeks late. If you don't do this now, well, you might have to fight with a lot of other people to go get employment outside of the federal government, because the people that do it now will be the first ones to be applying for jobs outside the federal government. So you might have a leg up. If you don't do it now, you'll be fighting with everyone else. Mm. If you don't take this opportunity, you're not guaranteed employment. You're not. We're going to look at everyone's position and see which positions can be eliminated. So basically, it's a big scare tactic.
Yeah.
In order to get people to take it. And of course, you got all the lawyers coming out, all the employment lawyers saying, don't take it.
Yeah.
Don't take the resignation. Download all your personnel files. Like, they're basically saying cover your butt. They said if you get fired, then you'll be eligible for unemployment, and then you can also sue.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much, or if you can actually get anything for suing. I don't know any of the legality of that, but some of these lawyers seem pretty confident in it.
Right.
But then, like, as an ordinary person, the stress of it all is going to be...
No, if I got that email, because you go into working for the government, you don't necessarily go into it to get rich.
No.
Right. But there are other benefits. There's like, one of the big ones is job security. You know that you're pretty much going to be okay as long as you're not a complete jerk off and you do your job and you show up, and you're not going to have to worry about getting laid off. And I think the way they do federal budgeting is ridiculous with all these shows and, shutdowns and all this crap. But for the most part, you're going to be getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. So that's one of the reasons you go in. And to throw this in there just kind of is really just a kick in the balls to all those employees. And, when you have people that just regular working folks who always tend to end up being the villain, like there's dead wood in every job.
Right.
But I'd be willing to bet that the dead wood is more at the top than it is at the bottom.
Yes.
People that have, and you've talked about it before with burrowing in and all this other stuff, like people that get into these cushy spots and just exist and collect a paycheck, probably never even been in their office, these no-show jobs. Get rid of those people. Not the families that, that are just regular, working folks.
Yeah, there's definitely the two sides of it. You got the people at the top. They call them the the career civil servants, which are your SES level. So SES level is like your, I guess they would call them C-suite in the corporate world, like the top level management people. But then you've got people like right underneath them. And those are like, they're usually GS-15s or 14s. And a lot of agencies become what they call top-heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they used to work was, if you weren't a very good employee, but you had your tenure, and I don't mean like you were a jerk or anything, but you just couldn't move with the times, you couldn't adjust to a system, or you just weren't good at the job, and somehow you found your way into it, they would essentially promote you up so that you weren't the one dealing with the public. You weren't the forward face of the
You
entity.
do the least amount of damage there.
Correct. Yeah, there's very little damage a supervisor can actually do.
Yeah.
Well, and then what would happen is they'd either promote you again to get you out of the way. Basically, like once you started doing a little bit of damage, they would promote you out until they got you in a position where you couldn't do any damage. But by that point, you're a GS-14 or 15. I mean, and a GS-15 Step 8 is probably making close to 175, 180, which isn't bad. But they call it putting you in a corner.
Yeah.
Just they put you over there. It's something they don't really need, but they can't fire you. You're not willing to leave. They can't convince someone else to take you. They can only detail you so many times.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of that. But those are also people just working, right? Could that be cut? Sure. Is it still a little bit cruel? Sure.
Yeah.
But of course, you got all these private sector employees that are like, fuck them.
Yeah.
Get rid of them. They're dead weight. They're lazy. They don't do anything. And it's like, okay, hold on a minute. A lot of the people that go to work for the government, they do what their job tells them to do.
Yeah.
They do the job. Now, whether that job asks them to do less than what you think they should do or more than what you think they should do, I'm sure there are some where they're working, there are some that work 70, 80 hours a week. There are some that maybe do an actual 20. And then you've got some that'll do 80 for like 2 months out of the year and then 20 the rest of the months, and it evens out, right? Yeah. But there is, and this is where working for the government comes into play. Yes, it's very stable, or it was. Yes, there's generous time off. Mm-hmm. The health benefits are okay. I mean, they're on par with other state and local agencies for the most part. They're not as good. I mean, they're not as great as most people think. They're probably better than the private sector. Sure.
Oh yeah. Like you're not paying deductibles and.
You do. Oh no. Okay. You still have minimums.
Okay.
I mean, you pick your level of plan. A lot of people, in order to pay less up front, they're picking high deductible plans or high minimum plans. I mean, it's the same as in the private sector, but the government covers more of the premium.
Yeah.
But generally, and especially in the D.C. area, which is where we are, a good employee that takes these jobs wants the stability.
Yeah.
They could probably make 1.5 to 2 times their annual salary. And again, these are the good employees. They can make 1.5 to 2 times their salary working in the private sector around DC.
Yeah.
Because of all the contractors. And that's what people really don't understand. It's like when you have a lot of these workers in the DC area, you're not competing with the rest of the nation, right? Well, someone in Iowa could make $40,000 a year in subside. Yeah. Well, first of all, no, they can't. But you get the point. Like, they don't need to make 120. They could make 70. Well, we could save the federal government a lot of money that way. Okay, well, if it's determined that that's where they need to be, fine, move them out to Iowa. And in fact, a lot of federal employees don't work in D.C.
Yeah.
But because the D.C. employees are competing with the D.C. contractors, you gotta pay a little bit better than the rest of the country now, or you give them better benefits, right? So they have a little bit better retirement system, and everyone's like, oh, pensions. Okay, slow down, slugger. Some of the retirement systems with these private companies, they might not have pensions, but the matches are higher for the 401ks. And never mind the fact when you match that with the double in salary that people can put away into their own 401ks, like it I'm not saying it evens out, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, because if they're doing if you're making twice the money,
Yeah.
and say that private company is doing a 10% match, so then you put 10% of your twice the money in, and then you're getting 10% from your employer on their match.
Right.
That works out to a huge contribution that you can.
It's double the return. So in the federal government, you can put in 5%. The government matches 5.
Yeah.
Well, if you can put in 10 and your employer's going to match 10, okay, now you're getting 20% in your retirement plan versus 10.
And you're starting from a number that's twice as high.
Right.
So now it's like 40% higher.
Right.
Yeah.
And so people don't really realize that. And of course, like, well, have them learn to code. Look, because they're the ones that got laid off or whatever, or it's Johnny Plumber, you know. And the part of this where, let's say it's the HVAC tech or the plumber or another service provider. If you're in this area, the worst thing that can happen is all these federal employees being punched out.
Oh, yeah. The entire economy of this region
Yeah.
is based. So, because we all know they don't make anything in Baltimore anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's out. So, like, all those, like Bethlehem Steel, we all know, Domino Sugar, all those big companies that were in Baltimore manufacturing, we don't make anything in this country anymore for the most part. So then here, the big employer is the federal government and all those contractors. And it's always on the news here, like whenever there's a shutdown or a furlough, all the local businesses take a hit because there's nothing moving anymore. You know, people aren't going out to eat when they're getting furloughed. Companies, when there's shutdowns and budget crunches, they're not hosting parties, and people aren't traveling here and staying in hotels and using all that stuff that's around here when that stuff happens. So there's definitely big impact. Now, of course, that's like people in the, you know, dealing with the Gauls in Rome saying, oh, the Romans are crying that the aqueducts don't work. But it still is because there are just the majority of this area. It's not like all the kings and the royalty lives here. There's still the people that take out the trash and serve the food and do all that stuff too.
Yeah, I think where we are in particular, we probably don't have too many of those like SCSs and higher level people living out. We probably have more of like the GS10s, the 13s that live out here.
The SCS, they're on McLean and Burke and
oh yeah, and so I love the HVAC guys gonna be like, well, you're still gonna need me when your HVAC system breaks. Okay,
I can't pay you.
well, yeah. So you're either gonna get stiffed or those service contracts you make a shit ton of money on. Well, what happens when people don't renew those?
Yeah.
And especially in this area. Okay, 20 people. Those service contracts are like $200 a year. And that's just so you'll come to the house.
Yeah.
Right? And you'll just come and play with some knobs and some whistle. Most of these things are fine on their own. So $200 a year, okay, let's say it's 1,000 people. That's all coming out of your pocket.
Yeah.
They'll just or they won't fix it right away, or they'll do one service visit rather than two. It's all coming out of your pocket just like it is out of them. And then if they cut contracts, okay, now it's not just federal employees, it's contract people. So all the people for Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, IBM, and then you got all the subcontractors onto them. I mean, then you get like the Lockheeds, the Raytheons.
Yeah.
The network of how many people get paid off the government is intense.
Yeah.
Like if you start pulling some of that money out at the personal level, that's when it's going to start to hit you. Like a Raytheon contract in itself doesn't hurt the plumber or the HVAC guy or the deli down the street or the pizza shop. That's not going to hurt them that much.
Yeah.
But if you start laying off the employees that work at those companies or the federal government employees themselves, okay, now you're going to feel it more because now the money's getting pulled out of the local economy. And I just think it's really funny and ignorant when you see these people on social media saying, fuck those people.
Yeah.
We need, I pay too much and their salary comes out of my taxes.
Yeah.
Okay. You also get something for it.
Right. Yeah.
Or when they say, Social Security is an entitlement. No, dickhead, it's paid into.
Yeah, you paid into that. And that whole, and the thing is, it's when they started letting Congress steal from it to pay for other shit. Like,
Dude,
that's where it was supposed to be a self-sustaining thing. And now, granted, when you have, like, as right now, we have an influx of older people pulling from the system, like the boomers, as they all retire and need, like, it goes down, but then it comes back up again when they're gone, and then, like, now there's more young people putting into it. But
it's still the other way, though, right now.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why we need some immigrants.
Yeah.
Because we need more people to pay into it.
Yeah.
But at this point, people say it's a Ponzi scheme. And at this point, I can't really disagree with that. But that's because Congress mismanaged the shit out of it.
Right.
So for people that don't know, because I always tell people, I tell people, Congress is borrowing it at 0%. So basically, think of Social Security as a bank account. Someone else is borrowing money from that account and paying you almost no interest to use it.
And then not repaying it at all.
No, they do.
Okay.
So it's all done through T-bills.
Yeah.
They essentially take T-bills. So the government needs T-bills to get their money, right?
Yeah.
Well, Social Security is the one buying the T-bills and getting 0.5% back on it.
Yeah.
So that's how the government borrows from Social Security.
Yeah.
Well, what they should have been doing was investing in the market. Mm-hmm. And everyone's argument is, well, you can't invest government money into the market. That would be crazy.
State and local government pension does.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So the Canadian pension system, the New York pension system, and the California pension system, look up CalPERS. That's what the California pension system is. They all invest in the market.
Yeah.
Now, they're not investing in like crazy and extreme risky shit.
They're not buying Dogecoin.
No. But they're buying IBM, Verizon, like all the blue chips, but then they're also buying higher end dividend bonds or higher yield bonds. So, for example, like a T-bill might pay 0.25% or 2%. Well, you can go into a bond fund and get 5, 6, 7%.
Yeah.
Right. So the American taxpayer is actually losing by only earning 1% on their money. They're losing 7 to 8 to 10% per year. Mm-hmm. Because they're not invested in the market like all these other. That's why some of the biggest institutional investors are those pension funds.
Yeah.
They have a huge say in the boards of these companies because of that. So if the federal government would just switch to that, Social Security would be solvent in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not 2. I'll say 5.
Yeah.
But then the federal government wouldn't have this huge organization to buy their T-bills.
Yeah.
So Congress couldn't borrow as much.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the anger part should be.
Yeah.
Because we used to have a budget of around $1 trillion a year about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. What is it, 3 trillion or something now?
4.
Oh, sorry.
And then, Donald Trump did that. Okay, well, so did Barack Obama. So did Trump. Okay, I don't care who's doing it. Stop this shit.
Yeah.
You're telling me we can't get by on a $1 trillion budget?
Yeah.
For real? I mean, where did the other $3 trillion go?
Yeah.
We still got homeless in this country.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't go into increasing cost of living for seniors. Mm-hmm. It certainly didn't go to the federal employees.
Right.
So where did it go?
Yeah.
And so I think, look, we've said this time and time again. You and I are not Trump people.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm against everything Trump does.
No, I could take, and that's the thing, like, and we've had the discussion previously, like, you have, because everyone has to be on these teams, this tribal, you're a Trump guy or you're a, or whatever the hell you are, whoever's running, like, you can take things from each side that you like and don't like. Mm-hmm. Right now, there's a bunch of stuff I don't like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And there's just better ways to do it. I think some of it has to do with the personalities that are involved. One of the big ones was Trump coming out and talking about, when the what is American 1534? Is that the flight number that crashed in the Potomac? Mm-hmm. And after the collision with the Army helicopter? he comes out and starts blaming DEI hires.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, but all he wants the applause. And he wants his base, the thunderous applause from the base. But the only thing that should have been said after that crash was, our first priority is recovering the victims of this crash, returning them to their loved ones. Our second priority is investigating the cause of it to make sure it never happens again. If that investigation determines that a lowering hiring standard led to someone who shouldn't have been in that position being in that position, then we have to fix it. That's how you do it. But I don't know if he's not smart enough, or if those of his base aren't smart enough, or he just wants that applause and that reaction. He doesn't care what the reaction is. It's like a bad little kid. The little kid just wants your attention. Doesn't care whether it's good or bad. So, and a very well, now there were changes in hiring standards at different levels and, the FAA and different organizations. But you can't say for certain that, this person, because of that lowered hiring standard, got in there and made this mistake and created that crash. Now, the other side is going right off and saying, this just proves how racist he is. It's this continual spin, when the real thing that needs to happen is, hey, how the hell did this happen? Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Because there really is very little reason for a modern airliner on final approach to a big airport to get hit by a military aircraft. Like, it doesn't, you're dealing with two highly trained professional crews. And yeah, mistakes happen, but all the technology, collision avoidance systems that are out there, this sort of thing right now shouldn't be going on. This is stuff that was happening in the 50s.
Yeah. And look, and you're a much bigger aviation buff than I am. He should never have said the DEI bullshit. I'm sorry. Like, look, I'm not a big fan of the DEI stuff, but for a different reason.
Yeah.
And we can get into that. But at this point in time, one, it probably didn't have shit to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say never, because I never say never.
Yeah.
But I'm almost positive it didn't have shit to do with it. Two, you're right, it's for applause. But the problem is, for all the moderates that are trying to basically come to grips with the fact that they voted for him, this makes it all that much more difficult.
Yeah.
How do you defend something like that to other people who question you on why you voted? Well, this is what you voted for.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't vote for him being a dumbass.
Right.
I'm taking it because, I voted. Again, we won't say who we voted for, but if I voted for him, I did it because it was so horrible on the other side that we couldn't keep going in this direction.
Yeah.
So I voted for someone who wasn't them, and I got him.
Yeah.
Now, again, am I going to love everything he does? No. But I'm still going to take this bag of shit because the bag of shit over here was far worse.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this again with Biden and the Democrats. The Democrats have gotten hijacked by lunatics.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I'm just like, okay, you're not based in reality.
Yeah.
I can't go along with that. It's like when the Tea Party first came about and they had that fucking lady running in Delaware that was the self-proclaimed witch. Yeah. I'm not getting down with that.
No.
Like, I got to vote for whichever side says the least crazy shit. And right now, unfortunately, it's him.
Yeah.
And yes, there's going to be some bad shit I don't agree with that comes with it. But rather than them thinking, whoa, maybe we were that bad, they're thinking, you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And it's just going to keep going back and forth like that. Because you got some people not based in reality. And it's like, when you have certain, and we talked about single issue voters before in the past, and like when your single issue finally comes up, that you can't vote for that side anymore.
Yeah.
All right, well, maybe that wasn't the path to go. And recently, the DNC voted for new chair and vice chair. So professional actor David Hogg is now DNC vice chair because he's gonna bring the kids back to the Democrat Party. Like, dude, you're a fucking laughingstock. If anything, the kids that look like him and talk like him with all the talking points, it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah. And but the thing is, the people that are going to follow, that are going to be influenced to go to the Democrats because of him, are already there.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a great. It was like a video on my reels came up, and it was this dude, and he might be fishing, or and this woman comes up and she goes, "Hey," and he looks over, she goes, "Hey, cool older millennial, we need you back," and it says DNC over her head, and she's going through all this stuff. He's like, "Well, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm going to say these words because they're funny, and all my friends like them." Like, okay, we'll give you those words. And it's this whole and it's like kind of like that's kind of the direction you need to go, and you just went and picked for the guy that anyone who's going to be influenced by that guy are already in your camp. Mm-hmm. So you're not making it any better.
No, you didn't come back to reality with the picks. Yeah. And you're right. It's like, look, you got to give up some of the crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of it, and this is Alex saying this. I want to make sure it is known Mike is not saying this in case you don't want to be associated with what I'm about to say. The trans movement, I think, has been very detrimental to Democrats. And I'm not saying that because we've kind of talked about this. I almost feel like gays and lesbians have been hurt. I guess the bis too. The LG and Bs have been hurt by the T's, Q's, I's, plus, two spirits, whatever. Have been hurt by whatever this push has been. Because I think for the most part, before, I want to say 2012, no, not 2012, 2017, 2018, before COVID and all that shit. I think the gay marriage thing was done.
Yeah.
There were no rights that gay people didn't have anymore. I'm not going to say it was widely accepted, but a lot of people, I want to say like 70 to 80% were, it was a dead issue. You're living like everybody else now.
Yeah.
Not like in the 80s where there was actual violence towards gay people. Look, my uncle was gay in the 80s, in the well, I mean, he was gay in entirety, but I mean,
he existed during that time.
Correct. Yeah. The 70s, 80s, like back when it was bad.
Yeah.
Like walking down the street, if you were walking down the street holding hands with another man, there was a chance they were going to get jumped.
Yeah.
Right. And these were not those times. And the gay marriage thing finally got settled. And I think it was like, okay, unfortunately, now you're just like everybody else. You're in obscurity now, right?
Yeah, you're just welcome to being a normie.
Yeah.
You're just a gay dude
right.
or a gay girl. Like, nobody cares.
Right. Now,
and I think the overwhelming majority of people, that's what they wanted to begin with.
Well, for the old school gay people, I'm generationing. But basically, like, that generation of gay people, this is what they wanted. And they were happy.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got this new movement. Well, now gender ideology, sexuality was now in school curriculums.
Yeah.
And for people that say, no, it's not, it 100% is. And it's you can go to, like, I believe San Diego Unified School District website, the New Jersey State Department of Education website. They've got it all there. Mm-hmm. Where it says when they're going to start introducing gender identity and sexuality to kids, and it says young as second grade.
Yeah, it's insane.
Which is nuts, right? Yeah. And most people, I think, have the idea that we do, where you are free to be whatever you want. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to start teaching sexuality and having books with blowjobs shown in graphic novels in an elementary school.
Yeah.
This used to be common sense stuff.
Yep.
Now they've changed pedophilia to be minor attracted people.
Yeah, they're softening it.
Right. Like they're trying to make it more normal. And they start with young kids like this. And for me, and then you have the trans women in women's sports. For people that don't know, trans women are boys that used to be boys that are now
they identify as
women. Thank you.
Yeah.
even though they might be a fully intact male. Mm-hmm. And for those that don't know, look into what Riley Gaines has been saying. Riley Gaines was a swimmer at the NCAA level. Leah Thomas was a 3-year letter winner at the University of Pennsylvania on the men's swimming team. Senior year, after 18 months of hormone therapy, decided to go swim on the women's team as a fully intact male. Tied Riley Gaines for a medal at the NCAA championships. When they got backstage, they said, look, it's a tie, but we're going to give the medal to Leah for the photographs.
For the optics.
For the optics.
Yeah.
And that was when the whole podium issue came into play.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you were to ask 100 people, I think 85% or 80% would say Leah Thomas should never have been swimming with the women. But now you've got these laws going into place to protect women's sports, and now you've got the other side saying, well, you're bigoted now.
Yeah, and that's like Connecticut went...
It wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
Well, it was necessary. Mm-hmm. And what were you saying about Connecticut?
It's like Connecticut went full on the other way and put laws in place saying they had to be allowed to compete. And my whole concern is, say there are 100 women that were swimming at that NCAA swimming championship, right? That's the top for them, for the most part, unless they're an Olympian.
Sure.
But for the most part, and in fact, there are U.S. Olympians that swim in those, because these girls, like, I think Katie Ledecky was 16 or 17 in her first Olympics. Like, she was young.
Yeah.
So then she goes and gets a full ride to swim in college. But for the most part, that NCAA, for the majority of women's sports, because there aren't real big pro leagues, that's the top for them. That's the peak. So my concern is for girl 101, who doesn't make the cut because now this other person is swimming it, and you can slice it whichever way you want. It's unfair physical advantage. Mm-hmm. Now, that was a girl who grew up and she was that tall, and that is what it is. But that's not what we have here. Right. Because in his head, if he feels, live your life, but now you're affecting other people with it.
Right. And
that's where the big problem comes in. My concern is for girl 101, the one who doesn't get to swim in that peak event because her time gets bumped down by the 434th fastest men's swimmer the year before.
Right. And I know people are going to say, well, she wasn't going to win anyway. I don't care.
Yeah. She had a chance.
It's her right to compete against other women. And if she is girl 100, she shouldn't be bumped to 101 because of someone else's gender ideology.
Yeah.
And I love how people try and downplay that. And it's like, no.
But see, I think a lot of the people who are downplaying that never played a sport in their life anyway.
There's that, but
they've never done anything competitive.
But I'm surprised there are women that are trying to downplay this.
Yeah.
Like, no. There were women that came before you that fought this fight.
Yeah.
They fought for Title IX so that women had equal opportunities to play sports.
Yeah.
And look, you can be someone who doesn't play a sport or whatever it is, and that's fine. But recognize the fight for the equality of funding for your sports.
I mean, that's why sports like field hockey exist, to compete with football.
Well, I wouldn't say exist, but
at the level that they do.
Right, and having the funding that they do. Rather than going out in like reversible pennies, you get a full uniform kit, a full-time coach.
Yeah, full scholarships.
Full scholarships and scholarships.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with that. Like, you have NCAA Division I, say the big programs.
Yeah.
Like, Alabama. If Alabama's going to offer 25 full rides to their football team, well, now they have to have 25 full rides for women as well. Bingo. And that's where field hockey, there's a sport, women, the U.S. women's dominance, maybe not as of complete recently, but for the majority of Olympic competition, women's soccer they were the king, and
we need to bring that back. Come on, ladies.
Yeah. But like other sports, field hockey, lacrosse, these sports wouldn't necessarily be there if it wasn't for those women who fought for those rights under Title IX and for the equality under Title IX.
100%. And so like when people talk about single issue voters, honestly, that was my single issue vote.
Yeah.
This time around, I normally wouldn't go single issue voting.
Yeah.
But again, this is when a bridge too far. for me, especially because I've got 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And like, I've had the argument of, because there are some people who know my daughters and are like, they try and fight for the other side. And they say, well, you don't invalidate the trans kids. Like, I'm not invalidating them.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is,
You're also not threatening their lives,
correct.
Or your belief in this matter is not a danger to them at all.
And I understand. Okay, is it completely fair that this person feels they weren't born into the correct body and that they have to live this way? No, I'm not saying that's fair. But you are free to live your life if you're a boy transitioning to a woman, as a woman, to an extent that it doesn't infringe upon biological women.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Like, no, you can't use the women's bathroom. No, you can't play in women's sports. Those were earned rights that women have fought for in the past.
Yeah.
You are not going to usurp their rights for your minority position in this case. And I know, minority position, what about, black people sitting at the same counter as white people? I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
This is a defined biological difference. And a minority group fought to win this right. A minority is not now going to usurp that right. Mm-hmm. Like when black people fought to sit at the same counter as white people, they weren't usurping a right of a white person to eat.
Yeah.
You can still eat.
Yeah. Right.
Right. It was just now an equal opportunity to eat.
Right, because they were second-class citizens.
Correct.
And like that's the thing where I think gets missed is like when they make those broad comparisons, even with the gay rights movement, they were second-class citizens. Mm-hmm. They could not enjoy the same rights and privileges that everybody else could because of laws that were in place, and they fought to change it. And I think they've done great societal good as well. My kids don't care about that. Like, when I was growing up, I was like, ew, that's the, now I don't care.
Right.
My kids don't, and I think it's better that they realized it even earlier. And a lot of that has to do with, and I was raised by very open-minded parents who, they were essentially hip. My mother was more of a socialist than a hippie. My dad was like your classical liberal. But, that sort of stuff never really, like we accept people as they come and for who they are. Mm-hmm. And, I think at least the majority of people I know have that mindset when it comes to all those sort of things. So I think they did an even bigger good for everyone by fighting that fight to remove that, de jure second-class citizenship status. It was in there by legislation in many cases and policy. So
yeah, and with gay people say, well, what rights didn't they have? Well, one, they couldn't marry. Yeah. But two, it was the benefits that came from marriage that were unseen. So, for example, if you have a loved one, let's say 2 gay men were in a relationship and were partners back then. If one had to go to the hospital, the partner wouldn't be allowed in the room because they weren't family. Yeah. And that was a hospital issue. Mm-hmm. Then you also had the issue of spousal benefits, retirement benefits, and other types of stuff like that. Yeah. Where if you're not married, and you don't have those benefits, and or rights for that matter, and so that's why gay marriage was a huge issue. And I've been a huge proponent of gay marriage. Yeah. This is a little different. There's no rights being taken away from transgender individuals. Now, is there radical acceptance of transgender individuals? No, but that's a social issue. Yeah. It's not a legal issue. It's not a rights issue. You want people to be okay with what you're doing, and that's something you can fight on a societal level. Mm-hmm. It's very much more nuanced, in my opinion.
Everything. Well, people are on acceptance of nuance, and I think a lot of that is because if you accept the nuance or acknowledge it or look into it, well, then you can't use to drive wedges between people anymore. True. It stops being as an effective tool. So when you look at nuanced issues and you say, this but that, and there's all kinds of other factors in play. Once you remove the fundamental, once you apply the nuance to it, it stops being a wedge issue. And it's no longer politically advantageous to use it anymore.
Yeah. And people, I mean, and then there's the surgeries issue too with minors as well. And that's a whole nother topic. For the trans individuals, there are parents that are allowing their children to have these surgeries before they go through puberty.
Yeah.
And there's a the whole idea behind accepting all of this has been because of a study about suicide. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been around long enough where they've done studies about the people who transitioned, and the suicide rate was no better.
It didn't change.
It did not change. And then you now have lawsuits now from people who had surgeries that tried to go through the transition when they were really young. They've then grown up, and now they're suing the people that transitioned them because they grew out of it.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm worried about like the 18 and under group that's been allowed to do this. What? It's like you can't buy cigarettes at 18. You can't join the military until you're 18. You can't. We have restrictions based on age for a reason.
Yeah,
but if you want to go have a double mastectomy,
it has to be accepted.
It has to be accepted, and we can do it as young as 12.
Yeah, so I think Joe Biden early in his term said that like he'd support a 9-year-old that wanted to go through transition, and I said a 9-year-old. There was a time I had a 9-year-old, and I was like, I have a 9-year-old, and I won't let him pick his own haircut, because he's 9, he's going to do something stupid, because they haven't developed the experience or the right sides of the brain and all these other things that would come in to say, so no, you're not getting a freaking reverse mohawk, dog. Like, we're not doing that. You think it looks cool. So reverse mohawk would be just shaved down the middle.
Yeah.
Or like what would be the perpendicular mohawk? Like, so it's like goes like this. Like, well, you can't see, no one can see that, but essentially like a mohawk that went from ear to ear.
Ear to ear.
Bald in the front and back. Like, you're not doing that. No. Like, because you're 9 and I'm your dad, and I said no. But they wanted to legislate that, oh no, the state would actually take your child from you and force the issue.
And that's happened too. And there are people that said, oh no, that doesn't happen. Well, it does
and
happen.
my position on that's, regardless of what it is, that's government overreach. If the government came in and said, hey, your 9-year-old wants a perpendicular mohawk, you have to allow them to do it, people lose their minds over that.
Right.
We're going to remove the child from your custody for their safety? Are you kidding me? So anytime the government's coming to your house and removing people from your care is, the standard has to be really high.
Yeah. I feel like, so we definitely, we moved from the Elon portion to other things with the government we weren't really approving of. Mm-hmm. We got away from Elon for a little bit. So with Elon right now, so he sent that fork in the road email, but he's also been going through some other departments, divisions. What is the word I'm looking for? Department? Is it departments? What would OPM be? Is that a department?
I guess.
Okay.
Office?
Office?
What do they fall under?
I don't know.
GSA?
Oh, no. Is it?
I don't know.
I actually don't know. So he's been going through these government agencies. There we go.
Okay.
That was the word I was looking for. Words are hard. He's been going through these government agencies. And my concern with this is, and don't get me wrong, we could talk about whether the end result is good or not, but the thing I have an issue with right now, Elon Musk hasn't gone through a proper security clearance.
Yeah.
He's got 5 to 6 people helping him.
Who are they?
They age from 18 to 25. And they're engineers. Now, they're computer kids, right?
Yeah.
Let's say what they are. They know how to code. They know how to read code. They know how to write macros to pull information. They know how to scrape data.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. They're scraping data for Elon to look at.
So they're just going to run the entire federal government through an algorithm?
Basically. Yeah.
And then whatever that spits out on the other side, Okay, so that should work great.
Well, the data they're getting, though, is actually fairly decent, and especially out of USAID. And they're basically exposing AID for what it is, which is just a CIA operative group that they can't do under the CIA. And so AID sends money to NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, to do the work that the CIA can't do, right? Let's say what it is.
Yeah.
Although we didn't have to say what I mean. If anyone wants to find out, they're essentially saying that all over social media and media. Anyway, we're not breaking news here.
Right.
Whether people think that those NGOs are doing good work or bad work, again, opinionated. The problem is you've got about 6 to 7 people with no government security clearance looking at secure government information, including employee data.
Yeah.
Like social security numbers, bank accounts, addresses, like at some point it's like, okay, what are you doing with this data? Are you creating lists?
Yeah.
Like, are you doing? And we always laugh when we said that, you know, the left would call Donald Trump a fascist, right? Okay, well, are you doing some fascist shit right now?
I think left to their own devices,
Yeah.
both sides would right away become fascists. That's just, it's just the easy thing to do. It's the best way to get things, not the best way, it's the easiest way to get things done. It's the most efficient.
But right now, there's only one side that said, if you don't do this, you get fired from your job.
Yeah.
And that would be the left.
Yeah.
If you don't get a COVID jab, you're fired.
Yeah.
Or if you don't radically accept this thing, you're a bigot.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to that point yet with the right. My problem is you got these people looking at this information. Okay, you have now the biggest data trove anyone's ever seen. Now, don't get me wrong. OPM's been hacked 17 times since Sunday. So, I mean, there's been about 20 OPM breaches. I mean, the government employee Social Security numbers have been breached 12 times already.
Right, because Betty at the Department of Education opened up her email and be like, "Oh, I'm going to click on this link."
And you want to know what the government did? Well, we'll give you a year of LifeLock for free. A year? You expose my information forever. Betty doesn't just need a year of LifeLock. She probably needs an entire
life
lifetime.
of LifeLock.
Yeah. Well, we'll just give you a year. They'll forget it by then.
Betty had a good run.
What do you mean they'll forget it by then? It's in a fucking Excel spreadsheet. They're never going to lose it. But so I think the big problem now, and this is the problem I have with Elon at this point. Elon might be great with numbers. He might be great with science. He might be great with engineering. He might be great with a lot of these things. He might be great at business. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I know he's doing NASA's work with SpaceX. I know the man engineered how tunneling can be done so it can be done cheaper and faster. He brought electric cars to the mass public in the United States. The man's done quite a bit. He brought person-to-person payment with PayPal.
Yeah.
Done quite a bit. I don't doubt him being a brilliant mind. I doubt his judgment with humans.
Yeah.
I think right now, and this is where Trump is probably scratching his head a little bit, because Elon tweets every day just like Trump, but Elon's tweeting shit that pisses people off.
Yeah.
No, Trump pisses people off too, but this is different, in my opinion. Mm. Trump usually tweets shit to benefit people's lives, or he's tweeting to, there's an end goal of trying to make a deal somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's called the big ask, right? Anyone who read The Art of the Deal knows he's, like with the tariffs, the tariffs are there to negotiate with. But you got to have something to negotiate with. Therefore, you got to pull out tariffs out of nowhere, because otherwise you don't have anything to negotiate down.
Yeah.
Elon is basically saying, fuck everybody. Okay. Well, it was funny when you said fuck the New York Times, because they wouldn't advertise it on your website. But now you're telling actual regular Joes to go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't play well when you've got the billionaire guy from that owns Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company and Starlink and all this other stuff going and saying, oh, hey, GS12, go fuck yourself.
Right.
So, like,
he's going to do a lot of damage to his own personal brand, I think.
yeah.
Because
it's funny, though, all the people that still buy these Teslas and stuff, to virtue signal how green they are.
Yeah. By the way, are there any worse drivers on the road right now than Tesla drivers?
Yeah, I wish they'd get that autopilot back up so they'd stop driving them.
They can't. So in the last quarter, he basically said, with the hardware that the cars have, full self-driving was never going to be a reality. The hardware couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. So now anyone who bought full self-driving on Teslas can take the cars into Tesla and they'll put the new hardware in so that it can actually be used properly.
Oh, so my whole, and this guy, well, this is what we do on this show, so sorry. People who would do dumb things like read the newspaper and stuff, like, you have to look at more like autopilot. And you still have to monitor, you still have to have your head outside the cockpit looking around. You can't just like take a nap and that's how it should have been.
I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to let the car just drive itself.
I could do it on cruise, like on the interstate, just as you're moving along, because I love cruise control. When I take a long trip, mm-hmm. I'm not trying to get there as fast as possible. I want to find the speed that everyone else is going so I don't have to change lanes and just set the cruise and go and point it. Now, if I could have the car point itself, just stay in the lanes and not hit the car in front of me, fine. Now, when we have to turn to get an exit, the nav says in 2 miles. Well, then I'm going to shut it off and I'll make that turn.
Yep.
And then as we're on the next stretch of cruising, I'll do it. But I don't expect, like, I'll hand fly it on a final approach. I don't want auto land. Like, I want to be able to just, have it maintain airspeed and altitude. Like, that's all you're doing, car.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know if I'll ever get used to that. Now, don't get me wrong, though. And this is where I wish the U.S. had a better train system than... Yeah. We're fortunate because we live in the Northeast Corridor for Amtrak. So if I want to go to New York City, I'll literally drive to BWI, park my car, because there's a train station at BWI Airport.
Yeah.
I can park my car 20 minutes before the train arrives. By the time I walk out of the garage, get onto the platform, I got to wait 5 minutes for the train.
Yeah.
And I can walk right the fuck on.
Yeah.
I don't have to do TSA security, none of this shit.
Oh,
and
sure.
then I get a nice, big, comfortable seat on the train. Yeah. And
you get up and walk. You can go to the cafe car and get a snack.
I can get snacks.
You can get booze,
snacks. I can put my feet up because it's got the little footrest thing. I could, if I recline the seat, I'm not hurting the person behind me,
right?
Because the seats are far apart. I can put the kids in there. They got the nice big tray. They're watching their stuff. I'm watching my stuff.
Yeah. And a train nap is
that clack. Oh, yeah. That's a drool-inducing sleep.
Oh yeah,
and there's nothing
rocking a little bit.
There's nothing better than a drool-inducing sleep. I'm sorry, but that's one thing I wish we would do more of in this country is high-speed rail, and we could talk about that another time because that's going to get completely off topic. But a train ride is essentially like full self-driving only.
Yeah.
I'm not the one that has to sit there and pay attention to shit.
Hell, I mean, the engineer up front, you can't turn it.
No.
There have been some...
It's mostly electronic for them.
Yeah.
They have to adjust speed based on where they are.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's pretty electronic.
Yeah. Like the monorail in Disney has nobody running it.
Yeah, that kind of freaks me out. No, wait, there's someone in the front.
Is there?
Yeah.
I've never been to Disney.
There's someone in the front. I don't know if they're actually touching controls, but there's someone in the front.
Yeah, it's to make people feel better.
Because you can sit in the front. So if you ever do go to Disney, there's a little trick. You go to the front. Mm-hmm. When the conductor comes out, when the train stops, you can go up there and say, "Hey, can we ride in the front?" Mm-hmm. And there's generally not a huge wait to do it.
Yeah.
And the guy says, "Sure," and you go in and you sit up front.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool.
Oh my! Well, the youngest one would love it.
Oh yeah, and you can sit like in the nose.
Oh yeah.
It's like the bow of a boat.
It's like an upside down boat. Like it's real.
Right, but you can like the seat. So that the conductor sits kind of like a little back.
Yeah. And
in front of them is like the U-shaped couch.
Okay.
And so you're like in the nose.
Oh, so it's like you're in a bow rider.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like
yeah,
an open
that's what I
bow
was trying to explain.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not,
I got you.
I can't describe boats, but yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And so for kids, for the little Disney tip, if you ever go there on the monorail, go to the front and just ask to go sit there, and they say yes. Like there's no, right?
Yeah.
I don't know the right. Not that they're trained to say yes, but they like it's a thing.
Yeah.
People do it all the time. But the weird thing is, I don't think people know about it because whenever you get on the monorail, very few people go to the front.
Right.
Like you got to go way to the front.
Yeah.
It's wicked cool though. Wicked. It's wicked pissa.
I think that for anyone that's been to Europe or hasn't, like when you go to their transportation network, it's like where we are in Annapolis, like there's no train to DC or Baltimore from here. You can go up to Glen Burnie and take freaking light rail, which it takes forever.
You take the Mark II, which is the commuter train.
Yeah, but like the fact it baffles people that I've spoken to from overseas that come here and they're like, "There's no train from Annapolis to DC." No, and it's the fact that when I was in college, I went to Paris and then Brussels and rode the. It was a Belgian train called the Thalys. So it's Thalis. So it's kind of like the TGV in France. Beautiful train, super fast. Like Paris to Brussels by car is like, I think 4 hours, 4-ish hours. It did it in 2. And it's just humming. Like the train's actually like, when it goes at curves, the trucks bank, but the train is, the train car itself is stabilized.
Yep.
Now, also, these are, subsidized entities.
Well,
Amtrak is subsidized entity too.
That's where I was going with this, because all the anti-train people are like, "Well, it doesn't pay for itself. It's not profitable." It's public transportation.
Yeah.
That people actually want to take.
Yeah.
So, and I get and the other problem with Amtrak is there's too many stops. Like having from DC to Chicago. Make 1 or 2 stops.
Yeah.
That's it.
Stop at I don't know. I'm trying to draw a rough line to there. Stop at Pittsburgh, Cleveland,
right.
Like pretty much an MLB city on the way there. That's where you should be stopping.
Dude, you know how cool
you shouldn't stop at Chitlin Switches.
It would be, and this might exist, and if it does, we may have to decide if we're going on this trip. If we can go from DC to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Cleveland to Chicago, and we can hit 5 baseball stadiums.
Oh, yeah.
That might not be a bad way to go. Now, are we going to get there quick? No, because Amtrak's slow as fuck.
Yeah.
But I would choose to do that over flying.
Yeah. Now, I know the Acela stops.
It does stop. It stops less frequently.
Yeah. Like, it'll stop in, I think it stops in, from D.C., I think it stops in Baltimore, Philadelphia, maybe one place in New Jersey, and then...
It stops at BWI. It stops at Baltimore. It stops in Wilmington. It stops in Philadelphia.
Okay.
It stops in Trenton. It stops in Newark, and it stops in. It makes a lot of stops.
Yeah, so, but
it only takes 30 minutes off the trip of the New York region of the Northeast Regional. If it didn't make all those stops, it would probably take almost an hour off that trip.
Yeah.
Now the other issue is the tracks.
Yeah, they can't handle because they're using CSX tracks. I think
they are, but what they're doing is. And they're doing the project in New York City now to make it so that it's not as banked in a lot of areas. Right now, there's some pretty banked turns where it doesn't allow the Acela train to reach its full speed.
Yeah.
The Acela train itself can go about, I think, 125, 130 miles an hour, which isn't fast compared to European and Japanese trains. But it is fairly fast if it can just get on a straight and go.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of areas in which it has to slow down because of the tracks and because of the infrastructure itself. And they're trying to fix that. And I think one of the choke points is in Baltimore somewhere. And I think another choke point is in New York City. And they're trying to fix it, but it takes forever because, and this is a Republican Democrat thing, the fucking restrictions and the regulations and shit. It's like, fuck, man, come on.
And I think this could bring us maybe I'm not sure what time we're at, but
we're about 104.
Yeah.
Right now.
So this could probably bring us full circle. Rather than gutting the federal workforce and upending all these lives, maybe look at making things more efficient by some of these regulations that are out there that can and they weren't put in there by legislation. They're put in there by some committee or bureaucrat or agency or whatever, like, we have to make sure the shadfish larvae have room to scratch their butts before they metamorphosize.
Mm-hmm.
What? How does that affect a train that's 200 miles inland? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. The last thing we'll talk about, because we'll wrap this up pretty quick. When we talk about regulations, you remember the one thing we used to talk about was nuclear energy? And this is way off topic, but it's not a big discussion topic. And we had said nothing had been put in place since the 70s for nuclear.
Yeah.
Well, some of those plants that got shut down and put offline, they're actually bringing them back.
Oh, cool.
But only for certain companies to use for data centers. So, for example, I believe it's 3 Mile Island.
Okay.
They had shut down reactor 2. 1 is the one that had the issue.
Yeah.
But reactor 2 was perfectly fine, and they took it offline. Well, Microsoft is building a data center nearby. And in order to power that data center, they're going to restart. They're in the process of restarting reactor number 2.
So for Microsoft, they'll conveniently ignore the regulations.
Correct. Now,
so that they can power Skynet.
For the general public, there is only one other new nuclear facility being built, and that's in Tennessee, and it's only as an experimental unit. But I do think we're going to see some kind of nuclear renaissance coming here in the next few years.
Yeah.
Mostly restarting old ones. But yeah, there's another one I believe in Georgia, but they're expanding it.
Yeah.
So it's already existing as a nuclear power plant, and they've got, I think, 3 reactors, and I believe they're adding a 4th.
It's funny how everyone they're all the anti-nuclear people and all that. Like Tacoma Park is a nuclear-free zone. I don't know if you do that.
I did not.
Little town by us. They declared themselves a nuclear-free zone, which nobody cares. They're not building a nuclear power plant right outside of D.C. Anyway, but like all these people, and I'm convinced there's a conspiracy that the protests were funded by the coal industry and the oil industry and why not? It's in their interests. But for all that, but in the 50s, they were putting nuclear reactors in airplanes to see if it would work. there was like they were.
Well, they're saying now the spent nuclear fuel can be used in batteries.
Wow.
So whenever you're done with that uranium, because at that point, I guess the radioactivity has been depleted to a point, they can now take that uranium and put it in batteries.
Wow.
And so now you don't have any nuclear waste, I guess.
They're all in Teslas.
Pretty much. Imagine if I think that's like probably the next renaissance though. Yeah. Is power storage, battery power, wherever we're going in that direction. I think there's going to be some kind of technology that comes out. Yeah. That pushes electric cars. Because here's the thing: if we're really going all electric cars, and California said 2035 all cars got to be electric.
U.S. Moore said the same thing.
And if that's going to happen, you got to start generating more power. Yeah. And nuclear is really the only way.
California can't keep the lights on as it is.
Yeah. You're going to have to do it with nuclear. Yeah. And then the other part of that is the lines. Yeah. And the grid. You got to modernize this shit. We're working off of 1970s technology with the grid. And to be honest, you really only got to build in some redundancy. So like you can't have a closed off part of the grid. So like the Northeast can't be its own power region.
Yeah, you need to make it like the internet.
You got to connect it to the Midwest somehow. So that just in case the power generation in the Northeast gets cut, okay, well then you just flip that switch on and the connection from the Midwest to the Northeast gets turned on, and now you have power generation.
Well, that was the whole idea behind the internet. Yeah, was that there was no direct lines. It was all they were all connected, and if there was a nuclear strike here, you can still communicate because it would just route around somewhere else. All these computers were connected. Just make it like that. Just copy the internet.
Yeah. All right. You good with this one?
Good.
All right. I want to thank Adam Chubbuck, TACMD.com. That's TACMD.com. Douglas Realty, Pasadena, Maryland. If in case you want to move closer to a nuclear reactor, he will be the guy that will be able to direct you toward one. Or if you like to move away from one, he can also move you in that direction as well. Do we have one in Pasadena? There's that coal up there. You know what I'm talking about?
No, that's coal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Pax River that nuclear?
I
think that is.
Yes.
All right. So we do live near a nuclear generator. So if you want to move closer to Pax River, I'm sure Adam can help you with that. Or if you want to move closer to the coal one in Pasadena, he can certainly help you with that. Go to TACMD.com, TACMD.com. Talk to Adam Chubbuck with Douglas Realty. Team Alpha Charlie. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the 1-star review to his burner account. If you have a comment you would like to leave on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, rate us. Give us that 1 star or 4 stars or 5 stars or however many stars you want to give us. Let us know you're listening. Comment. Send us an email. We'll talk to you next time.